Welcome, everyone, to the Aging and Spirituality podcast. I'm Kathy Lee Taylor,
And I'm Chris Jensen.
and we are here talking about realizing your potential, that part of you that you haven't tapped into yet, but are ready to try something new. Today, I'm going to be talking about kindness. How you make people feel shapes the world, and it shapes their world as well, and why it's really important that you focus on truth as well, because the truth is always kind. And it's a lesson that I learned very intimately in my spiritual growth. And I'll tell you about that story in a little bit. I really believe that it matters how you make people feel. I love this quote from Maya Angelou. She once said, I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel.
Yes,
And isn't that true?
that is so true.
It
That
is so
is
true,
so
because you
true.
you know that when you come up against somebody that made you feel horrible, that's the first thing you remember. It
That-
is, it's like, oh yeah, I remember how they made me feel.
Mhm.
So just imagine for a moment if we lived in a world where every act of kindness, no matter how small, transforms our lives. It's not a fantasy. It's a powerful truth that's rooted in our shared humanity, and it's rooted in love. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So when people hurt you, um, it's typically because of their limitations. And I'm starting out this way because I had a situation that came up in a group that I'm working in that made me feel this way, that made me feel hurt. So I started to write about it. So it's always disappointing when someone you care about, or maybe someone you want to get to know better, they treat you like you don't matter. And they don't always know that they're doing it, but you sure as heck feel it. Typically, their actions it's not a result of something that you did when they respond the way they do, but it's because they're experiencing something at the time when they probably don't have anything to give. They don't have kindness to give,
Mhm.
or they're focusing on it, right? They're
Mhm.
impatient, busy, they're upset about something themselves. I mean, people get out of balance every day. We talk about being in balance in yoga. Chris and I have devoted our lives to be thinking about being in balance every day, working at it hard, practicing it. So people who don't have that intention fall out a lot. So we hurt each other, and that causes a lot of chaos and a lot of disruption in relationships. So it doesn't excuse the behavior, but when you realize that they're not causing it, it's helpful for your own sanity.
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
it yeah, we're just in the way, basically. So I said I joined this learning community online, and it's under the tutelage of someone who talks about the importance of kindness, which makes me want to throw up, because the only problem
What?
the only problem is that her actions don't meet that standard. They're
Oh,
not they're not kind. They're not kind at all. Like,
isn't that so true?
it
And
is
people
so
talk about that stuff, but they don't do it.
Yeah. And it's typically because the teacher's learning and hearing themselves, say those words. Yeah,
Right.
kind
When you learn it. Yeah.
of, right? They're learning. And so they go back afterwards and go, oh, yeah, I guess I wasn't very kind. So, yeah, I'm aware of that, but it doesn't change the
Doesn't
situation.
change anything.
Yeah, you still want to kick him in the ass.
Right.
So anyway, I was a target of her shaming and, holding me accountable for some work in a way that, was not comfortable. And I'm owning my part of that I needed to do something. But, how often has it happened to you that somebody treats you that way, and it could have been handled completely differently, with some kindness? Her methods didn't work for me because they didn't meet what I needed most at the time. I wanted her to see my struggle, help me escape that place and not like push me over the cliff. So that required kindness in the moment, and I didn't get what I needed. So sometimes people have to fake it until they make it. If you're thinking about kindness and you're saying the words, okay, that's probably a good start.
It's a
But
start.
we'll take it. But it's important that we all set the intention and we strive to learn to be kind every day because it's a journey, and that's mostly what I'm saying today. It can be challenging to know how to help others, to how best help others. I mean, as a coach, I think about that all the time. You can, it's so easy to say words or do something that can hurt someone when you really have the intention of wanting to help them. And using kindness as a default really does help us grow into being better human beings. So, keeping in mind that everybody learns differently, right? So, like, if you've ever attended like a Tony Robbins seminar, you know how big his presence is, right? But all that chest thumping and jumping up and down and playing music and the extreme decibels of the sound shattered me. I went to see one of his live events. It made me feel really small and unsafe around him, and I couldn't learn in that environment. We're all different that way, and I'm totally taking responsibility for my response here because a lot of people find him inspiring. Millions have, but for me it was the same kind of problem that I experienced in this online community. It was behind what they're communicating, there's this level of arrogance that makes me really uncomfortable. Their messaging is kind of like, I know what's right for you. And they might, they're there for a reason. So they might. But
Well, not.
the attitude they take is like, you paid me to get this message through to you, so I'll do whatever I can to do it, like drill sergeant be damned. Like for me, it just doesn't work well for me because in that way, I think I'm a little introverted. I'm kind of like right in the middle of introvert and extrovert, but I do not respond well to that kind of berating.
Listen, I'm a full-on extrovert and I don't respond to that at all.
Okay,
I
good.
am.
That's good to know.
So I
Yeah.
think,
You can tell, well, our style of even talking and teaching is so completely different. But anyway, yeah, it for me, effective communication is using words and messaging in a way that allows people to be able to receive them. And you have to have an awareness of what's going on of that with that other person to be able to do that. And if you're in a room of 4,000 people screaming at the top of your lungs, how can you possibly know how people are experiencing what you're saying and how it's landing for them? So at my stage in life, I really believe that having an open heart is much more important than having the right answer when you're helping somebody. Um, really, when you think about it, a good friend is someone who gives you room to explore your feelings and makes mistakes and helps you find the answer yourself. And that really requires a safe space. That's what a good coach does. That's what a friend does. That's what Chris does for me and what I do for her.
you bet.
Um, so if you hurt someone's heart straight up, it's going to be very difficult for them to hear what you're trying to say, right? Hence the need to be kind, and why Maya Angelou said what she said. You never forget when somebody hurt you that way because you always feel like you have to be cautious around them after that. So, some of us among us are stalwart and will fight our way through that kind of facade. And I know that I have many times, but um, it makes me think, what if we all made an effort to be more kind every day? How much better off would the world be? I know I've said that, but I need to reiterate it.
Mhm.
The world would be so much better off if we could all be kind to each other. It takes effort. Yeah. Some people think being kind makes you look weak.
Mhm.
Looking at you guys. It does not. It does not make you weak.
And
Um, I really, I
more
really believe
strength.
it's what?
Takes so much more strength.
Oh my God, it does. No question about it. I believe it's also being kind is a universal way of saying, I respect your humanity
Mhm.
and I will do my best to speak with you in a way that nurtures you and loves you. You know, that's
Mhm.
what it that's what a yogi would do. A yogi pronouns and acknowledges the soul in another human being.
Yeah, you bet.
So yeah. So let's see, you when you're communicating with people, when you're helping them, when you're teaching them, you don't need to beat them over the head with a stick. Just plant the seed. The if they don't hear what you say the first time, it's okay. You planted a seed, it's going to blossom later. And believe me when I say divine timing is always perfect.
Yeah, and
Always
people have to, theyll take what they need from it,
right.
and that will grow.
That's
Not
exactly
necessarily what you want them to do at this moment.
that you have taught me that as a teacher. You're been amazing in my life for that. That's exactly what I think about when I think about you as a teacher. You teach what you teach, and people get what they can from it at the time, and then it plants all kinds of seeds, and you keep going from one, putting one foot in front of the other. So yeah, that's what we're talking about. So I did want to tell a little story about how I was raised and why I, have gone down some of the paths that I have. And a lot of it had to do with my dad. He was a perfect example of what I'm talking about. He loved sports, and he spent every spare moment he had when he wasn't working to take care of his family. He volunteered to coach sports, and he dragged us all along with him. There was four kids. So, as a result, I started gymnastics at 5. I did judo, swimming, diving, baseball, hockey. I joined the track team in school. I learned ballroom dancing, and I discovered tennis in my 50s, which I still play. So what he really taught me was how to love my life through my body. That physical movement, was a really important lesson. And I really am grateful for that because it's helped me be healthy and enjoy a lot of my life in ways that I see our kids today not being able to do because they never got outside and played. They're spending their whole lives looking at screens, which is a whole other talk. So, although it was a great lesson, the way he taught me, I think, is a little questionable. I knew he loved me, and his lessons were harsh, definitely. I remember when I first took flight off a high dive and I belly flopped, he made me get right back up and do it
Oh,
again
wow.
because he knew if I didn't, that I would never approach the board again. He wasn't wrong about that.
Yeah,
His philosophy was right. But as a child, what I needed was him to acknowledge my feelings at the time
yeah.
and then show me the lesson. But feelings were not a part of my dad's world.
Well,
I
women of
remember
that generation, they just weren't a part of it.
they weren't. And I'm hoping that guys are learning much more about their emotional intelligence, and that's going to make a big difference in their parenting skills. I do see that happening. There was another time when I was hanging from a door jamb on a bar and it slipped and I fell to the ground, like bang, and knocked the wind out of me. And he was standing over me laughing. And I was inside. I'm trying to breathe, but I'm confused and I'm like so angry at him for laughing. But, you know, I kept telling myself, well, he's teaching you to be strong. I remember another time when I was pitching softball and to a neighborhood kid, and he did a line drive right at my head. And my angels had to been watching out for me that day because I caught the ball and didn't even know it was in my glove. So of course my dad is laughing from behind the plate as the umpire, and I couldn't help but wonder, what if that ball had killed me? That ball had hit me in the face, that would have knocked my head right off. But anyway, that would have been a good time for some kindness, is what I'm trying to say about it. In hindsight, I know that he taught me to be courageous, and I'm really grateful for that. So I'm not complaining about that. I'm just making a point about how it could have been a little different. It really was at the expense of me feeling loved, learning that lesson of courage.
Mhm.
But his inability to moat, and this is kind of an interesting part of this story, it haunted him into his deathbed. He never really learned, but I was there when he died. His body had literally withered down to 86 pounds from arthritis, believe it or not. And he was bedridden in the last 5 years of his life. He'd gone from a guy who could walk up the stairs on his hands to dead at 56. So I remember near the very end of his life, he was in the hospital room, and my brothers and I were staying out in the hospital parking lot in an RV so that we could take turns being with him because we knew he was at the end of his life. And he'd go in and out of consciousness, and I was wait and see, when he would come out, he would stir and I would try to connect with him. And I remember the last time I saw him that night, he opened his eyes and he smiled, recognizing me, and he said, I know what it's all about now.
Mm.
And I said, what's it all about, Dad? And he said, love, it's all about love.
Oh, oh
I
my God.
know, right?
Oh my
Your
God.
heart is just like, oh.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we all get our messages when we can hear them. And oftentimes it's at the end of the at the end of the road, at the end of our lives, we hear what's most important to us, you know. So don't wait for that. Be
Mhm.
kind, you know, be loving. Chris and I are blessed because we studied under a master of yoga. And I remember when a core group of us were learning to be yoga teachers, which Chris is, he had us do a homework exercise in which we had to write down our ideas about what is the truth. And you know, keep in mind at the time, I was still dealing with some childhood trauma. So I was writing about how angry I was at my mother for years of pain she caused me and our family because of mental illness, basically. And, you know, no one was ever in our home was happy unless she was happy. And that rarely happened. So, but the details those details aren't important. What's important is that my teacher's response to the outpouring that I had in my report really changed the trajectory of my life. He wrote something really critical on it with big red letters. He said, "The truth is always kind." I remember reading it and thinking, "Oh my God, of course it is." You know, like it was just one of those aha moments when you go,
Mhm.
ah, I get it, you know, like being on your deathbed and you realize, oh, it's all about love. The
Mhm.
truth is always kind. And that changed who I was at that moment, you know, and I became a different person and acted differently. So now I don't communicate without messaging through my kindness filter, you know. I ask myself, how would this message feel if it was given to me? How will it land on this person from what I know about them now? You know, how are they going to feel when they hear the words that I'm about to say? I'm always, you know, filtering what I'm going to say so that it comes from the heart and not some idea that I have for them that I want to be right about, you know? So I intend to be kind in thought, word, and deed always, and not right, not smart, just kind,
Yeah.
kind.
Yeah. And it's something that we all can do
We all
if
can do
we
it.
want to.
I hope you're getting that messaging for sure. Two examples of this, and I'll sum up real quick. I was thinking about human beings that have been really kind, and the two that came to mind for me was Gandhi and the Dalai Lama.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, they practiced kindness. They lived kindness. Gandhi was lived by the principle of ahimsa, which it means nonviolence. And he believed that achieving social change through peaceful resistance and civil disobedience rather than violence was the way to go. He liberated the country using that philosophy. He stressed the importance of truthfulness in all aspects of his life. He knew that truth ultimately prevails and that lies only create problems. And again, the truth is always kind. He also taught India about self-reliance, which goes way beyond individual self-sufficiency. He advocated for India's independence from British rule, and he encouraged people to rely on their resources and their capabilities. And for me, that's really the most ultimate form of self-empowerment. Really, Gandhi was an amazing, amazing human being. The Dalai Lama is somebody who's best known for his messaging about compassion and kindness. He believes that happiness comes from cultivating kindness toward others. You want to be happy? Be kind to others. That's a good place to start.
Mhm.
Even to people who are difficult to be kind to.
That's the lesson for all of us,
That's
right?
the lesson for all of us. Yeah, that's the thing that he is so beautifully able to talk about. He taught it that inner peace comes from mental discipline, which is what we talk about as yogis all the time. Hindus call it controlling the waves of the mind. He also advocated for meditation to achieve this state of well-being. So he spent a whole lifetime talking about happiness and how to cultivate joy. And a very amazing person. In fact, he wrote a book called The Book of Joy with Desmond Tutu, which is highly recommended. Really great book. So these two men, what they understood is that we are all part of one humanity. They live their lives in alignment with that truth. They spoke that truth. and they loved to the best of their ability. This is something that I aspire to for sure. I know Chris does as well. When we encounter teachers who want us to succeed their way, well, questioning their motives might be an okay idea. You know, protecting yourself from that kind of thing is not a bad idea. Remember, it's really how people make you feel and vice versa that's critical. Um, there's times that I had to learn to push past being uncomfortable and grow, but I know that some teachers are a good fit and some teachers don't feel safe, and that's okay. I've earned that. I can give that to myself. So when you work with someone, ask yourself, does their teaching philosophy separate me from others in the name of learning to be successful? We have a lot of
Oh,
fake kind of people online. They're going to teach you how to make money or teach you how to blah, 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 fill in the blank. And you get, 5 years down the road and you're like, what in the bejesus have I been trying to do? Like this is just crazy nonsense. So if somebody's kind, learn from them.
mhm.
You know, we're better off focusing on how to be kind to others first. So this way, we're going to allow success to take its natural course in our lives. At least for me, this feels much more aligned with the universe.
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
So there you go. I hope that's helpful. Be kind, everyone. Thanks for coming. See you
Nothing
next.
better than kindness.
See you next week. Bye.
Next week. Bye.